Hi everyone, I'm Joanna with Quiet Waters Farm and Craft. I'm going to show you how to make a very simple meal that's going to taste great. I'm not really focusing too much on the meat. I will show that later into the video, but what I'm going to be starting out showing you is how to make homemade noodles. Something very simple, only takes a couple ingredients, so it's actually a very cost-effective meal. The most that you're going to pay for is your meat. Now, whether you want to do a beef or a chicken, that's completely up to you, or a pork. You could even do pork if you wanted to. But it's very simple, very good, very homemade, and everyone will absolutely love it. And it's not going to take you very long to make it. It could take you 5 or 10 minutes to roll out the noodles and just check it throughout the day. Or even if you just roll it out and you have to go to work and work, a 5-hour shift or an 8-hour shift, it doesn't really matter. You could just roll it out and finish it when you get home. So something very easy that I have done for a really long time, probably over 10 to 15 years, with cooking for my family. But it is very inexpensive, very easy, so I hope that you enjoy this video. Hi everyone. Okay, so we're gonna need a bowl. I'm just using a mixing bowl. Now, when you make your noodles, kind of the rule of the thumb is 1 egg per 1 cup of flour. So I'm going to, and I do 1 egg per person, but when I'm just making a small batch, I kind of divide that into half because it actually makes more than what I need for 5. There's 5 of us, so I'm actually going to mix just 2 eggs. That will be plenty for a side dish of noodles for us. Now, if I was making that basically like my main course of just beef and noodles, I would probably do about 3 or 4 and roll that out, but just a couple goes a long way. So if you are doing a family feast, I would say anywhere between 10 to 15 people, you might want to do 10 eggs or maybe a dozen eggs, depending on the amount of people that you have. So we're going to just do I'm just going to do 2 eggs for us. So I'm just going to crack my eggs in the bowl. These are our farm fresh chicken eggs. Give these a nice little beat. Now, I'm going to be doing this in half cup increments to mix it in there. Because like I said, usually 1 egg per 1 cup, but it all kind of depends on the consistency. It all depends on the weather outside, and it's been kind of crappy. Yesterday it rained all day, and today it's sunshining, so temperatures could change. So I'm just gonna, I have 2 eggs in there, and I've started out with a half a cup. Alright, and I'm gonna add 1 more cup. And it's just loose, it's not packed down or nothing. Just fill it up, and I swipe off the top with my fingers to make it flat. Now see, I'm glad I didn't put all that in there because it's almost to the point that I need it to be. But so I'm going to take another half a cup, and I'm actually going to put it on my counter to mix in with my dough. And you might want to take off your jewelry for this, because it can get quite sticky and it really isn't that much fun to pull out of your diamonds or your band. Try to get all of the stuff out of here. Alright, so I'm just going to take this and put it on top. I'm just going to knead it. Just like this. So we want it to get as dry as possible, so that way it doesn't take all day to dry out. Alright, that looks pretty dry. It's where it's not sticking to me anymore. So let's see here. And it's got a little bit of crumbles in that, but that's alright. That needs to go in there. Okay, I'm going to get this kind of in a ball. Alright. Now I'm going to take this. So I only used 1.5 cups. So, we're here in Indiana, so our weather is always changing. It's never the same. Every day is different. Alright, so then what we need to get out is our rolling pin. And I'm just going to take a little bit of flour and I'm just going to roll this where it covers it. Okay? And then we're just going to roll it out. Just going to do a little flip to where it doesn't. And I have 2 pieces now. Maybe we'll get this one rolled out here. And see, I'm not rolling it very thick. It's pretty thin there. So that one is done, so I'm going to set that right there. Put this back over. Push down really hard to get it to go some more. Now, if you don't think that you're going to use all of this, you can just, once you get it dried out, fully dried out, you can freeze it. I've done that. Sometimes in the winter time when we have nothing to do, I will, I'll break out a dozen eggs and I'll make a big batch of it. And I'll get little quart-sized baggies and fill those up and stick them in my freezer. So that way, when we want, some noodles, all I gotta do is get my water and broth mix boiling and throw these in there, and it's ready to go. I don't have to roll out noodles. They're already ready to go. It's something to do in the winter time because I conserve eggs, so that helps because I can just pull those eggs out, rinse them off real quick, fill up my, get them all mixed up in my flour and get them rolled out all over my bar. And, it gives me something to do in the winter time. So that is another good thing for the winter. Now this is pretty thin. So we're just going to leave this here for a couple hours. Get my mess cleaned up because we won't need any of this. Everything is really dry. I can sit here and rub on it. Both sides are really dry, so it's not going to stick to my counter. So like I said, we're going to leave this here for a couple hours and we're going to come back and we're just going to touch it. If it's starting to get a little bit hard, then we're going to go ahead and cut it up into our noodle pieces and kind of flip it around a little bit so it can help it dry out. So I'll meet you back here in a couple hours. Okay, it's been a couple hours and our dough is getting pretty hard. So I'm gonna go ahead and slice this up. Now there's a few different ways that you can do this. If you have a noodle press, or you can roll it on out in that. I have one of those and I use that when I sell my noodles, but when I'm just making them homemade, I either just use a pizza cutter or that pizza cutter, or I just use this one. This is like my little wonderful tool. I love this thing. So if you can ever find one of these, they are a great tool because not only cuts your pizza, cuts your noodles too, to where you can just cut them in lines. So I'm basically just going to cut it just like that, and it separates really easy. But this is to where I'm not gonna slice my countertop, but it just does that. And it slices in pretty good. I mean, sometimes you have to go back and do a little bit. But yeah, it makes noodles to where I can just peel those off and does that. So I'm going to get the rest of this cut up and I'll be right back. Alright, so they are all cut. This is plenty enough for my family to eat for dinners. I made a couple of thick noodles. I don't like them too thin. Usually I will make a different batch that is thick and some that are thin, because some people like the wide noodles and some people like the thin noodles, but you know, it's whatever I make it, I guess. Alright, so there we go. I'm going to let this dry out for a couple more hours, and I'll probably come back in an hour and give it another little toss, just to where the air can get to it. But I'm just going to leave them on my counter and let them sit there, so I will be back in a couple hours. Alright, so we are back. We have got our pan on a medium heat here. And what I done is I took 2 steaks over here, right up on my plate over here, and I have just cooked them into my crock pot all day. Started at around 10 o'clock. It's 4 o'clock now, and I just cooked that. I cooked it on high for an hour, and then I turned it down to low the last few hours. So now I took those out, and I'm going to be using the broth that it made from the steaks, and it's about a cup of broth, and I'm just going to pour this in my pan. And I'm going to need a little bit more, so I'm just going to add a little bit of water to this, about a half a cup of water, and I'm going to see how it goes. Alright, I'm going to add in my half a cup of water. So I want it to be a little bit thin, because when I put my noodles in here, they're going to swell up, so you need to add some water. Okay, well, I'm going to dump the noodles in. If I get a little bit of the flour in, that's okay, because it'll help thicken up the sauce.
What do you got left to do on your video, Balls? Are you recording?
I am.
Sorry.
Okay. Sorry. It's my husband. Alright. This looks really good. So I'm just going to cook it on medium. I want it to come up to a boil. And I'm just going to kind of watch it. Now if my liquid starts going out, I will probably add in 1/4 cup of beef broth and 1/4 cup of water, because I want to kind of do half and half, because that's what I almost have here now, because my broth that was made in there was just water off of the meat. So I'm just going to leave this cook. I'm going to get the lid on there. I'm going to let this cook down for about 5 or 10 minutes, and then I'm going to come back and check it. So I'll meet you back then. Alright, So I put some of my meat in here to help give the noodles a little bit more flavor. So now you can do this with either chicken or beef, or you could even do it with pork. It's whatever you want. Now when you do it with pork, oh, and it's sticking to the bottom. Alright, well we gotta turn it down just a little bit. I turned it, when it started to boil, I turned it down to a low, but now I'm just gonna let it simmer. But you can add, now with pork, you can do either beef broth or you can do chicken broth, whichever one you have on hand. But this turned out really good. It's thickening up, and I don't add the whole chicken or the whole, like I did round steak. I didn't add all the steak in. I added probably a half a cup, just to where it's going to help flavor my noodles, and it's just going to taste really, really good. So just remember, you can do this with any type of meat that you want. You know, it's great for Sunday dinner, and I just did big chunks like that in there, and I just cooked it in my crock pot. So, you know, while you're letting your noodles, after you roll them out and you're letting them dry on the counter or on your cutting board, you know, put some chicken or some steak in a crock pot and let it cook all day with some beef broth or chicken broth. And then when you go to put it all together, you just need a little bit here, and then you can use the rest of the meat on, you know, a separate plate, or your chicken, so that way you still have a meat, you still have your noodles, and so you have two dishes instead of just one. So but this has turned out really, really good. This has been cooking for about 15 minutes, and I did turn it down. Now the one way to test it, let me get a fork here. So the best way to check your meat is I take it right up on the side and I just pop it off like that onto the fork. And once it's, you know, or let it cool, and I'll just stick my finger in it so that way I can see if it's still hard, then it needs to cook a little bit longer. But if it's soft and my fingernail goes through it, or when you take it up on the side and you slice it, if it slices right away, then your noodles are ready to go, they're ready to eat. So those are pretty well, it's just still a little bit. But it is done and ready to go. So I hope that you have enjoyed this video. This is going to taste great. I make this a lot for Sunday dinners, especially when we have family over, because they love homemade noodles. So I hope you've enjoyed this. If you do, give me that thumbs up. Please do subscribe to my channel so you can check out some of my other videos, and share this with your friends. That not only benefits you, but it benefits me and my family. So y'all have a blessed day, and thanks for watching.